The fluorescent lights of the Santa Monica tech office hummed overhead as Arthur Chen stared at his reflection in the black computer screen. 380 pounds stared back at him, a number that had become his identity more than his name ever was. The California sun blazed outside, illuminating a world of beach bodies and green juice bars that felt as foreign to him as another planet. He could hear his co-workers chatting about their weekend plans, their voices dropping to whispers whenever they passed his cubicle, as if obesity might be contagious. "Hey, Arthur, we're grabbing lunch at that new place on 3rd Street, Mark called out, already knowing the answer. Arthur shook his head, gesturing at his packed lunch, the same turkey sandwich and apple he'd brought every day for 3 years. The truth was simpler and more painful than any diet restriction. The restaurant's chairs had arms that dug into his sides, leaving bruises that lasted for days. He'd learned to navigate the world through a mental map of wide doorways, sturdy chairs, and bathrooms with enough space to turn around. That evening, Arthur sat in his Marina del Rey apartment, scrolling through weight loss forums on his laptop. He'd tried everything that conventional wisdom offered. Weight Watchers had worked for 12 pounds before plateauing. Keto made him sick. The gym membership had expired unused after the humiliation of not fitting on the machines and enduring the stares of disgust poorly hidden behind polite smiles. His browser history was a graveyard of failed attempts and broken promises to himself. Then he found it, buried deep in a Reddit thread that had been locked by moderators. A single comment posted at 2:47 a.m. by a deleted user. Lost 200 pounds in 6 months. Not selling anything, not promoting anything. If you're truly desperate, if you've tried everything else, message me. Below it, an encrypted email address. Arthur's finger hovered over the mouse. Every rational part of his brain screamed scam, but desperation had a way of silencing reason. The response came within minutes of his email. No sales pitch, no testimonials, just an address in Culver City and a time, Tuesday 11 p.m. Come alone. Bring nothing but yourself and your commitment. Arthur read it 3 times, his heart pounding. The neighborhood was industrial, isolated. Everything about this screamed danger, yet he'd already made his decision. He thought about his upcoming 10-year high school reunion, about Sarah Martinez who'd smiled at him in chemistry class before he'd gained the weight, about his mother's worried phone calls asking if he was taking care of himself. Tuesday arrived with unusual June rain, rare for Los Angeles. Arthur drove his reinforced suspension Honda through puddles that reflected neon signs and streetlights. The address led him to a nondescript warehouse wedged between a textile factory and an abandoned auto shop. No signs, no windows, just a single door with a small camera above it. He sat in his car for 15 minutes, watching the rain streak down his windshield, his breath fogging the glass. This was insane. He should leave. Instead, he opened the door and struggled out, his knees protesting under his weight. The door opened before he could knock. A woman stood there, early 40s, athletic build, with eyes that seemed to catalogue everything about him in seconds. "Arthur Chen," she said, not a question. "I'm Dr. Rebecca Walsh, not a medical doctor before you ask. Psychology, with a specialization in behavioral modification. You're here because nothing else has worked. Because you're tired of being invisible while taking up more space than anyone else in the room." The words stung because they were true. She led him through a hallway lined with before and after photos. The transformations were impossible, surely photoshopped. Men and women who'd lost not just weight, but years from their appearance. 6 months, Dr. Walsh said, noticing his stare. "Every single one. The program works because it addresses the real problem. Not calories, not exercise, but the fundamental relationship between your mind and your body." The main room looked like a cross between a medical facility and a high-tech startup. Several people worked at computers, analyzing data streams Arthur recognized as biometric readings. In the corner, a man who couldn't have weighed more than 170 pounds was doing push-ups with perfect form. "That's Miguel," Dr. Walsh said. 4 months ago he was 385 pounds, diabetic, could barely walk upstairs. Erdut. Arthur watched Miguel finish his set and stand, barely breathing hard. Their eyes met, and Arthur saw something there that made him uncomfortable. Not pride or accomplishment, but a hunger that had nothing to do with food. Miguel nodded once and returned to his workout, his movements almost compulsive. "The program is simple," Dr. Walsh explained, handing him a tablet with a contract. "Complete dedication for 6 months. You'll live your normal life, go to work, see friends if you have them, but you'll follow our protocol exactly. No deviations, no questions until the end. The weight will come off faster than you think possible. Your entire life will change." She paused, studying his face. "The only question is whether you're ready to become someone else entirely. Because make no mistake, Arthur, the man who walks out of here in 6 months won't be the same one who walked in tonight." The first month was hell wrapped in false hope. Arthur returned to his apartment with a single bottle of unmarked pills and strict instructions. 1 every morning, regular meals, light exercise, and weekly check-ins at the warehouse. The pills looked ordinary, white and unremarkable, but within hours of the first dose, Arthur felt different. Not high or energetic, but focused in a way that felt almost predatory. Food became mechanical, fuel rather than comfort. He ate his prescribed portions and felt satisfied, the constant gnawing hunger that had been his companion for years simply vanishing. By week 3, he'd lost 32 pounds. His co-workers started noticing, offering congratulations that felt hollow. "What's your secret?" Linda from accounting asked, her voice tinged with jealousy. Arthur wanted to tell her about the dreams that had started, vivid nightmares where he was hunting something through dark corridors, waking with his sheets soaked in sweat and an ache in his jaw from grinding his teeth. Instead, he smiled and said, "Just eating less, moving more." Dr. Walsh seemed pleased during his check-ins, taking blood samples and running him through cognitive tests that seemed to have nothing to do with weight loss. "Your body is adapting beautifully," she said, reviewing his charts. "The accelerated metabolism is working exactly as designed." When Arthur asked what was in the pills, she deflected with practiced ease. "A proprietary blend of metabolic enhancers and appetite regulators. Nothing you won't find in any GNC, just in specific combinations." Month 2 brought changes that Arthur couldn't explain away with diet and exercise. 60 pounds gone, but more disturbing was the way his body moved. He found himself taking stairs 3 at a time, his coordination improving beyond what simple weight loss could account for. His vision seemed sharper, especially in low light. He could hear conversations from across the office that should have been impossible to detect. When he mentioned this to Dr. Walsh, she made notes but offered no explanation beyond, "Some people experience heightened senses as their body eliminates toxins." The hunger started in month 3, not for food, but for something Arthur couldn't identify. He'd stand in his kitchen at 3 a.m., the refrigerator door open, staring at food that repulsed him while his body screamed for something else. He'd pace his apartment like a caged animal, his skin feeling too tight, his muscles twitching with unused energy. During the day, he maintained the facade of normalcy, but his co-workers had started avoiding him. "You're different," Mark said one day, keeping his distance. "It's great you're losing weight, but you seem intense." Arthur caught his reflection in the bathroom mirror after another sleepless night. 90 pounds down, his face had changed in ways that went beyond weight loss. His features seemed sharper, almost predatory. His eyes, which had always been brown, now had flecks of amber that caught the light. He called Dr. Walsh in panic, but her assistant said she was unavailable. The only response was a text. "Trust the process. Everything is proceeding as expected. By month 4, Arthur had lost 140 pounds and gained something else entirely. His old clothes hung off him like deflated balloons, but shopping for new ones felt surreal. The salesperson at Nordstrom kept staring, not with the disgust he was used to, but with something closer to fear. "Sir, are you feeling all right?" she asked, backing away slightly. Arthur caught his reflection in the store mirror and understood. His movements were too fluid, too precise. He looked like a completely different person, someone capable of violence. The other participants at the warehouse had similar transformations. Miguel had lost even more weight, but gained an unsettling intensity. During group sessions, they sat in a circle, sharing their progress, but the conversations felt rehearsed. Everyone spoke of increased energy and confidence, but Arthur noticed how they all had the same hollow look in their eyes, the same restless movements, the same way of scanning the room like they were searching for prey. Month 5 brought revelations that shattered Arthur's remaining illusions about the program. He'd lost 180 pounds, his body now lean and powerful in ways that defied natural explanation. But the mental changes were becoming impossible to ignore. He'd started having blackouts, waking up in places he didn't remember going. His apartment showed signs of violence, claw marks on the walls, furniture overturned, but he had no memory of causing the damage. The breaking point came when he found Sarah Martinez's Facebook profile. His high school crush had moved to Los Angeles, working as a marketing manager in Century City. Without conscious decision, Arthur found himself parked outside her office building at sunset, watching her exit with co-workers. The hunger that had been gnawing at him for months suddenly had a focus, and the realization of what he wanted to do sent him speeding back to his apartment in terror. That night, he broke into the warehouse. His newfound agility made it easy to bypass the security, his enhanced vision turning darkness into twilight. He found Dr. Walsh's office and her files, encrypted but not beyond his programming skills. What he discovered made him vomit into her wastebasket. The pills weren't metabolic enhancers. They were a cocktail of synthetic hormones and modified proteins designed to rewrite human DNA at a fundamental level. The weight loss was a side effect of the primary goal, creating something that wasn't entirely human anymore. The test subjects, himself included, were being transformed into something the documents called optimized predators. Enhanced strength, speed, and senses came at the cost of increasing aggression and a fundamental change in dietary needs. The reason food no longer satisfied him was simple and horrifying. His body was being rewired to require different nutrients, specifically those found in high concentrations in human tissue. The program wasn't about weight loss. It was about creating a new species, hidden in plain sight. Dr. Walsh found him there, not surprised but disappointed. "You were doing so well, Arthur. Just one more month, and the transformation would have been complete. The hunger would have stabilized. You would have learned to manage it." She moved with the same predatory grace he'd developed, confirming his suspicions about her own transformation. "Do you think you're the first? We've been perfecting this for years. Hundreds of us now, integrated into society, controlling our urges, while enjoying bodies that never age, never weaken, never fail." Arthur backed away, his enhanced muscles coiled to run, but she was faster. "You can't reverse it now. The changes are permanent. Your only choice is whether you complete the transformation or live with the hunger forever, getting worse each day until it drives you insane." She showed him videos of other subjects who'd tried to quit. They'd either given in to their new nature or ended their own lives when the hunger became unbearable. The police reports she showed him were even worse, missing persons cases that coincided with program dropouts. They couldn't control it, Dr. Walsh explained with clinical detachment. Without the final phase of treatment, the predatory instincts overwhelm rational thought. They become animals, hunting without discretion. We usually have to intervene before they're caught. Arthur ran from the warehouse, his enhanced speed carrying him through the Los Angeles streets faster than any human should move. He tried to return to work, to pretend everything was normal, But the hunger was getting worse. His co-workers smelled like prey, their heartbeats thunderous in his ears. He lasted 3 days before he stopped going to the office, calling in sick while he barricaded himself in his apartment. The final month arrived with Arthur at a crossroads. He'd lost the full 200 pounds, his body transformed into something that looked human but felt alien. The mirror showed a handsome, fit man, but Arthur knew the truth. He was becoming something else, something that viewed humanity as food. The hunger had become so intense that he'd started ordering raw meat in bulk, eating it barely seared, the blood temporarily quieting the screaming need inside him. Dr. Walsh continued to call, leaving voicemails that mixed threats with promises. "Complete the program, Arthur. Learn to control what you've become. The alternative is madness or death." He'd researched everything he could find about the program, discovering a network of disappeared persons, mysterious deaths, and covered-up incidents that painted a picture of a conspiracy that reached into government and corporate hierarchies. The optimized predators weren't just experiments. They were being positioned in places of power. Arthur made contact with another dropout, Jennifer, who'd managed to survive 6 months without completing the program. They met at Griffith Observatory at midnight, both maintaining safe distances, recognizing the predator in each other. "The hunger never goes away," she told him, her hands shaking with the effort of control. "But I've found ways to manage it. Blood banks, medical waste, anything with human tissue that doesn't require—" She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. She'd been investigating the program, finding connections to biotech companies and military contractors. "They're not trying to cure obesity," she explained, showing him documents she'd stolen. "They're creating super soldiers, corporate executives, politicians who never age, never tire, and have absolute loyalty because the program controls their medication. Miss a dose of the stabilizers, and the hunger returns tenfold." And together they planned to expose the program, but every avenue led to dead ends. Media contacts disappeared or suddenly lost interest. Law enforcement files vanished. Jennifer introduced him to a small group of resistors, other dropouts who'd learned to manage their hunger while working to bring down the program. They met in an abandoned church in Boyle Heights, each maintaining careful distances, each fighting the constant urge to feed. The group had discovered that the transformation could be partially controlled through extreme discipline and specific dietary supplements that mimicked the nutrients their bodies craved. It wasn't perfect, and the hunger never fully disappeared, but it made existence bearable. They helped each other maintain humanity while documenting everything about the program, building a case that might eventually be impossible to ignore. Arthur's breaking point came when Dr. Walsh targeted his family. His mother called, excited about a new weight loss program she'd heard about through a friend. The same promises, the same structure, the same warehouse address. The message was clear: complete the program or watch his loved ones be transformed. He had 48 hours to decide. He spent those hours planning with Jennifer and the others. They couldn't stop the program entirely, but they could save his mother and expose enough to make recruiting new subjects harder. Arthur would return to complete the program, wearing recording devices that might survive the transformation. He would become what they wanted him to be, but he would also be their downfall from within. The night he returned to the warehouse, Los Angeles was experiencing one of its rare thunderstorms. Dr. Walsh welcomed him with a knowing smile. "I knew you'd make the right choice. The final phase is simple. 1 injection, and the hunger becomes manageable. You'll still need to feed, but it will be controlled, directed. You'll be able to choose when and how, rather than being driven by instinct." As the needle entered his arm, Arthur felt the last of his humanity slipping away, replaced by something cold and calculating. But deep inside, a small part of him held on to the plan, the promise he'd made to Jennifer and the others. He would become the monster they'd created, but he would use that monster to destroy them. 6 months after walking into that warehouse, Arthur stood on a Santa Monica beach at sunrise, his transformed body barely recognizable from the man he'd been. The hunger was there, controlled now but never satisfied, a constant reminder of what he'd become. His phone buzzed with a message from Jennifer. First journalist agreed to meet, bringing evidence. He smiled, a predator's smile that would have terrified his former self. The program had given him exactly what he'd wanted, a new body, a new life, but the price had been his humanity. Now he would make them pay the same price. The transformation was complete, but the war against those who'd created him had just begun. Arthur Chen had lost 200 pounds in 6 months, and the secret was more terrible than anyone could imagine. But secrets, he'd learned, were meant to be exposed, no matter the cost. He walked off the beach as the sun rose higher, casting long shadows that seemed to writhe with a life of their own, ready to hunt those who had made him a hunter.